Hello, class, and welcome back to Radio 2. We're still compiling news, sports, traffic, and weather. We're going to be taking today's lesson from our Beyond Powerful Radio textbook, particularly Chapter 26, Integrating News, Talk for Radio, TV, and Web, on pages 297 up to 306. Let's get into today's lesson. Discussion points. Understand your listeners, where they live, where they shop, and what they want and need from you. Create an emotional bond with your audience. Deliver more than you promise to your listeners and advertisers. Surround yourself with people who want to win. Take time to talk to them and smile at them in the hall. Develop personalities your listeners will love. Focus on the positives in your corner of the world. Dream up fascinating promotions or special events. Remember, it's marketing. Know your competitors. Integrating news. Most audiences from news talk radio see both news and talk elements as equally important due to tight budgets and restrictive formats. Many full-time news talk radio newsrooms have been cut down and now may consist of only 2 to 4 people. Some newsrooms work with a lot of syndicated content, and the staff is often comprised of people who must be responsible for producing both news and talk or hybrid of both. News and talk should always work together, but often don't, causing a brick wall. Fight the war against the competition, not each other. Audiences want interesting, relevant talk. Failure to communicate. Why don't we talk to each other? Because talk and programming say the news writers, reporters, and producers are always so busy and we don't want to bug them. The news department says the talk hosts are in their own world and don't bother to talk or listen to us. Management says keep them separate because news is fact, talk is opinion, and entertainment. Mixing them would damage our news credibility. On Winning Talk Station, news reporters, anchors, and hosts talk to each other both on and off air. Look for talkable topics. Another way to build the relationship between the news and talk staff is for the news people to keep a lookout for discussable news items. A hard news story can generate a softer talk topic. Train your people to save stories about Supreme Court decisions or any polls or items about which people are likely to have strong views. Peel the onion. That is your story to find the material for an in-depth, open phone talk show. The crossover talents. Let's turn to page 300 in your Beyond Radio textbook. And let's read what the crossover talents are all about. Opinion traditionally had no place in the news. On the other hand, talk has not been a forum for chronicling the facts. So hybrid news talkers such as Dave Ross are rare. Wearing both hats, they manage to bridge the gap. When Ross does a newscast, the listener can tell what he thinks. Ross hosts a daily talk show on Cairo, Sattel, and presents news feature commentaries on the CBS radio network. Over the years, Cairo has sent Ross around the world to cover big news events such as the fall of the Berlin Wall. Dave Ross has found the equation to marry news to talk. Keep a unique voice and retain credibility in both. It is impossible to describe Dave Ross's creativity. Sometimes he sings his commentaries, often uses humor, and has a cynical, bright eye on the world around him. If you have not heard his work, a sample script archived from a CBS radio commentary, is an interesting twist on the healthcare cost issue in the United States. So let's take a look at the script on page 301. Dave Ross, CBS Radio Network script. Healthcare that's always there. The simple solution to healthcare costs. I'm Dave Ross on the CBS Radio Network. It's an appealing motto, healthcare that's always there. The big unknown is, at what cost? The president says that the savings are obvious. You can cut paperwork to one claim form, encourage preventive care, and end the billions of dollars of unnecessary medical tests. While I understand the paperwork, the insurance industry is ready to do that anyway. I understand preventive care, but how will you stop the testing? If a patient wants to test, does a doctor say no and risk a lawsuit? The key is to get the patient not to want the test. But how? I was talking with Dr. Nancy Dickey with the American Medical Association, also a family physician in Texas. And she told me an interesting thing. Whenever she offers patients a medical test, the first thing they ask is not, how much will this cost? Since the cost is usually covered by insurance. What they ask is, will this hurt? That's what they want to know. Will this hurt? And I suddenly realized that's it. We've been going about it all wrong. For years, doctors have been saying this won't hurt a bit. Wrong. The doctors should say, well, yeah, this is going to hurt a little. And he kind of glances towards a big old 4-inch long needle sitting over by the sink. That's why people didn't have as many tests 30 years ago, because those tests hurt. Healthcare that's always there is a great quote, but here's another one. You bet that test is paid for. I'll just go and get the needle. I'm Dave Ross on the CBS Radio Network. Develop a daily system. If you want to integrate your news talk product, it takes extra effort. The list that follows is a system to develop news talk integration. That you can find on page 302. Let's turn there. If you want to integrate your news talk product, it takes extra effort. The list that follows is a system to develop news talk integration. Work together. Meet with the producers, talk show hosts, and the news assignment manager or news director every day. Compare what you know about the news and events of the day. If it cannot be done in person, do it for 5 minutes on the phone, by instant messaging, or by email. Take today. Go through the list of today's topics. Discuss what will news do with the stories? What will talk do with the stories? Any ideas that anyone else has? Prospect for gold. Share the loot. Everyone should look through the wires, newspapers, and any other usual source material. Talk about multi-version reports or anything that can be done in short-form news, then moved into a long-form talk. Pick the right talent for the subject. If a news person or host has an affinity for a specific topic, he or she will do a better job. Why not send your baseball fanatic out to do the baseball story? Utilize your talent's natural interests, background, and experiences. This means you will really need to get to know your talent. If you don't know, ask. Is anyone interested in alternative medicine? Again, interested is interesting and powerful. Be flexible. Things change quickly. You've got to be ready to change plans. Listen to everyone's ideas. If people are assigned to stories or topics they do not like, ask them to give you better ideas. People always work better when the idea is theirs. Communicate. If things change news-wise or events happen throughout the day, talk to each other. This is a team effort, and the listeners are not necessarily aware that there is a brick wall between the newsroom and the talent area. Listen to each other. News departments, when they can, ought to be aware of the content of the various talk shows and whatever else is on air. Keep the radio on at the station. Talk hosts, listen to the news. Create a future file. When notices arrive regarding future events, designate a person to file them in the computer in daily calendar form. Both news and talk should utilize these lists for topic and story ideas. Newspapers work these type of files as much as 5 years ahead. Create a follow-up file. On dull days when not much is going on, look back. Did the station cover any stories that need to be updated? Any updated news story, you might ask. Where are they now? Did the child in the custody fight live happily ever after? What happened to the neighborhood after the rapist was released? Looking ahead is good, but you can also do mighty powerful radio when you look backwards. Do not fight over guests. If there is a guest or an interview that a news person has set up and the talk host wants to interview him or herself, work it out. Protect the on-air product, not your territory. Perhaps borrowing a clip or piece of that interview audio from the news department will be enough to get discussion going for a powerful talk show. Conversely, if something noteworthy is said during one of the station's talk shows, use it in the news. You'll have an exclusive. Producers, enjoy your host to the news staff by getting that audio to the newsroom fast. Here are some bullet points to summarize page 302. Work together. Take today. What will news do with the stories? What will talk do with the stories? Any ideas that anyone else has? Prospect for gold. Pick the right talent for the subject. Be flexible. Listen to everyone's ideas. Communicate. Listen to each other. Create a future file. Create a follow-up file. Where are they now? Did the child in the custody fight live happily ever after? Do not fight over guests. Let's get into break format when news breaks. This is when news talk is at its best. During times of national or local catastrophe, go and break format. Have a procedure in place in the event of an urgent news story. Get information on air right now. Drop what you had planned and go with the breaking story. Always archive. Remember to keep audio and video files. If you have the archived audio and video accessible, you can easily repurpose magic moments on air for promos. Bob Christopher's Creating Powerful Radio Points. Understand the listeners. Create an emotional bond with your audience. As often as possible, deliver more than you promise to listeners and advertisers. Surround yourself with people who want to win. Take time to talk to them and smile at them in the hall. Develop personalities your listeners will love. Focus on the positives in the corner of your world. Dream up fascinating promos or special events. Remember, it's marketing. Know your competition. Here are some key lecture points that you can walk away from this lesson. Radio ownership consolidation has created a financial situation where there are tight station budgets and restrictive formats, resulting in many stations having only 2 to 4 full-time staffers in the newsroom. In the absence of a bigger staff, a station with few talented and dedicated news reporters and anchors can make it work. Creativity in sources and resources can create the image that the station has more coverage. Radio news is not for the lazy. In an industry of communication, it is necessary for the news and talk talent to talk to each other, both in and outside the station, and share ideas and information. Developing a system or plan of action is critical. Teamwork is essential to a radio station's success. Archiving or saving audio files so that they are accessible for repurpose, on-air promos, and award submissions is required. That wraps up the lesson for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions for me, you can hit me up on our WhatsApp group for Radio 2. If you want to contact me even more privately, you can send me a direct message on WhatsApp. Alternatively, you can send me an email on nonhlanhla@boston.co.za. Otherwise, over and out.